Another school's kind of disappointed lately. That is the LSU Tigers. LSU was under 10 wins last year and outside of the top 25 in the final AP poll for the first time in Brian Kelly's era, really, at LSU's 3 years at LSU. The defense, once again, plagued the Tigers. They were 82nd in the country in EPA per play last year. They're hoping that numerous incoming transfers can help fix that side of the ball. But even if they can't, LSU's offense should be able to keep them in a lot of shootouts because they have a potential top 10 pick at quarterback in Garrett Nussmeier and plenty of playmakers for him to work with too. Now the issue could be for that offense. They lost 4 of 5 starters from that elite offensive line, including a top 5 pick at left tackle in Will Campbell too. But Dawn, really the biggest strength of the team, like I mentioned before, Garrett Nussmeier and some really good weapons at both wide receiver, tight end, and running back.
It's exactly what you think about with the Tigers, right? It's Garrett Nussmeier, a top 5 quarterback, and a bunch of guys for him to throw to. He was top 10 in big-time throws last year. And then you look at what they brought in. You have Barrion Brown, you have Aaron Anderson, you have Nick Anderson, you have Chris Hilton, you have Tradez Green at tight end, you have Caden Durham in the backfield. They have all the offensive firepower necessary. And look, the last 2 years, that's been the case, right? They had Jaden Daniels and Malik Neighbors, and that explosive offense missed the playoff. Last year, you had Garrett Nussmeier and all the receivers that he had, and it's still, they just need to be supported better, right? And I think what gives you hope is an elite quarterback and an elite set of weapons, and they just have to fill in around it. But that's the entire idea, is people going, okay, LSU's a playoff team this year, Garrett Nussmeier is a Heisman contender. Is that all going to come to fruition? A lot of that, sometimes we know that Heisman is a bit of a team award here and there, and they have to figure out some things. But it's a great group of skill players for sure that they're working with.
But I feel like we said this time and time again for LSU. Yeah, great quarterback with Jaden Daniels, Garrett Nussmeier. Great weapons, Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas Jr., all the guys they have at LSU right now too. And they've had the second best offense in EPA per play over the last 2 years. So you'd imagine second best offense, yeah, they should make the playoff easily with that. They haven't, because over the last 2 years, LSU has the 9th worst defense in the Power 4 in EPA per play. Now, they did add some transfers that are notable, like A.J. Halsey, the safety coming in from Houston, Mansour Delane, the cornerback from Virginia Tech, which some people think could be a first-round pick in next year's draft, Patrick Payton, the former highly touted edge rusher from Florida State too. They're hoping those guys, alongside a great linebacker unit, can help turn around that side of the ball. But if they don't, LSU could be in a ton of shootouts once again, and when there's a lot of shootouts like that, it's kind of a 50-50 toss-up for you. They really need the defense to really perform a lot better next year.
And I think it all goes together, right? The lack of a consistent run game, the lack of consistent defense. Garrett Nussmeier took the second most dropbacks last year in the country behind Kyle McCord. I think for as good as he is, you kind of want that to come down a little bit. Let's make some stops. Let's control this game a little bit better. And really, those defensive transfers, we'll talk about the O-line too, but those defensive transfers, that's going to be the key to their whole season. Plus, Harold Perkins coming back healthy and doing what we know he can do, whether it's rushing the passer, in coverage at linebacker, doing anything he can do to help that pass defense, because that's really, to me, what it comes down to is pass defense, right? You can get in shootouts all you want, but if you still can't make stops, eventually it's not going to matter, right? You'll win some and lose some. That's just high-variance football. So I think you hit it right on the head. It's just they have to be better, especially in the secondary. Those transfer guys are really the key to the season.
Absolutely. So let's talk about a guy who could be keeping LSU in shootouts next year. A guy, Don, who a lot of people think might be the best quarterback in the country, maybe the best quarterback in the NFL draft next year. Tell me more about Garrett Nussmeier.
Yeah, so, I mean, look, you're talking about a guy who, when we did this exact preview last year, actually I shouldn't say last year, but when I was studying Garrett Nussmeier last year, gunslinger. You could see it even in a small sample, right? Gunslinger. Now we're getting it again. It's just going to be, he's got a 5.6% career big-time throw rate. He's going to sling it downfield. He's going to throw it into tight windows. He's going to challenge the defense no matter what the coverage is, and you get some spectacular throws out of it, no question. He's got an NFL-caliber arm. He can make NFL-caliber throws. He throws the ball generally on time. You saw the pretty quick average time to throw right there. It's just a matter of, can they help him out? And sometimes that gunslinger mentality can get him, right? Because you're talking about, okay, he had the 6th most pass attempts last year into tight windows, only completed 19 of those. Like, he's going to try it, right? He's just going to try any throw on the field. I think that's what you look at, is you go, okay, He's going to sling it into tight windows. How often do we want him doing that, or can we create more easy throws? And he doesn't really have much to improvise with. He started to move outside the pocket a little bit more last year, but certainly not going to take off and run on you like Jaden Daniels used to at LSU, right? So a guy who wins from the pocket. He is cerebral. He's the son of an NFL offensive coordinator, Doug Nussmeier, who's right down the road with the Saints, and he's a gunslinger from the pocket, kind of an old-school gunslinger, but very, very good. Look, it works more often than it doesn't. Again, I just think they need to support him better, and the one thing I do question is losing those 4 NFL-caliber starters on the offensive line.
Yeah, absolutely. They did add a lot of really good weapons in the portal, too. Mentioned before, Barryon Brown from Kentucky. He went to LSU. So they have him. They have Aaron Anderson there, too. Traded Green, who I think could be a breakout star at tight end. A lot of weapons for Garrett Nussmeier to work with. But I want to talk about a guy who's going to hand the ball off to, and that is Caden Durham, who I thought was really good as a true freshman last year at running back for the Tigers. Former 4-star recruit last year, second among all Power 4 true freshmen with 749 rushing yards. The only one who had more was Isaac Brown from Louisville, who we have as the number 2 running back in the country right now. Caden Durham also led all true freshman backs in America with 261 receiving yards. Also really impressive considering LSU, as good as they were in pass blocking, only 96th in team run blocking grade last year too. A brand new offensive line blocking for him, but the Tigers will need Caden Durham to really just perform even better as a true sophomore. So the entire weight of the offense, like it was at times last year, is not on Garrett Nussmeier's shoulders.
As a team, they won 5 of their top 6 games of their best rushing grade.
Yeah.
Each week last season when they had balance in this offense. And the game that sticks out to me, remember they had that big comeback against South Carolina.
Yep.
They were down early. When they started handing Caden Durham the football and they had balance in their offense, that's when they started shredding South Carolina's defense, and that's when they came back in that game. And I just think that was a theme throughout the rest of the season. If they have balance with Durham, with the run game, with the offensive line, and Nussmeier doesn't have to make the second most pass attempts in the country, or the most even this year with McCord gone, then you're talking about, okay, they just get more dangerous. They just need to be two-dimensional. You can't just drop back and throw the football, especially with a guy in Nussmeier who's not going to take off and run. So you're really just old school dropping back, throwing the football.
Definitely. So Dalton, LSU's got plenty of questions with their defense in the defensive line and in the secondary, but according to us, they have the number 2 linebacker unit in college football, really because of 2 players, Harold Perkins Jr. and the guy we're spotlighting here in Whit Weeks.
Absolutely. I mean, you talk about all the transfers, and that's where all the focus is going to be, but the heart and soul of this defense is their middle linebacker, Whit Weeks, right? He reads and reacts to the football in a fantastic fashion. His run defense is terrific. I mean, you're talking about a guy who can do a little bit of everything for you, and I think that's what he is. He is the heart and soul, also top 15 among linebackers in pressures last year. He's a good blitzer. I think he just gives you a little bit of everything, and he's the clear leader of this defense, and he's going to have to be that even more so with Perkins coming back, and even when he was playing linebacker in 2023, struggling a bit in run defense, with all the transfers coming in the secondary and on the defensive line. Whit Weeks is the heart and soul of this defense, and if they're going to get better, especially up front, I think it does start with him, and he just has to take another step in his development and then continue to lead this team.
Yeah, these guys lived in backfields last year as a true sophomore. 21 tackles for loss or no gain, the 4th most among all linebackers in the country, 25 pressures, top 15 in the country too. He and Harold Perkins, who could rebound really nicely from that torn ACL last year, those are 2 guys who could be 2 of the 5 or so best linebackers that we have in the entire country in college football. Bottom line time now, Dawn. Do we think this offense will be enough for LSU, and do we think the defense will catch up for them to be a college football playoff team? Or are you taking probably the under on their win total, which is right now set at 8.5? What is the bottom line for the LSU Tigers?
They're a tough one. I'll be honest, because I do have a lot of questions. I think if most or all of those transfers hit on defense, this could be a playoff team. How much faith do we have in that, right? Mansour Delane going from the ACC to the SEC now. You know, AJ Halsey going from Houston to LSU. Patrick Payton really underperformed last year. I know he's maybe the biggest name out of all those guys, but he underperformed big time last year at Florida State. Is there enough on defense? And I worry a bit about this offensive line. Yeah. Losing 4 starters. And look, I'm not saying the guys that they have aren't talented too, because LSU's always got talent rolling through there. But
probably not Will Campbell, though.
You lost 4, and not just Campbell. You lost 4 guys that got drafted.
Yeah.
I mean, that's heavy with a pocket quarterback who obviously doesn't improvise a whole lot. So that 8.5 number is tough. And I'll tell you what, man, you talk about that offensive line getting a wake-up call. You got to go to Clemson.
Week 1.
You got to go to Clemson week 1. Man. And then 2 weeks later, you get Florida, and we just talked about their great defensive line. I'm going to surprise some people. I'm going to go under here.
Wow.
I'm going to do it. Because I just, there's a lot of questions. I think you look for constants in these kind of exercises. Nussmeier's one. It's great to have your quarterback as a constant. The receivers are good. They obviously have a good group of weapons for him to throw to. But I'm worried about the offensive line. We got to see. We're going to find out early. We're going to find out really early. 3 of their first 5 games are Clemson, Florida, Ole Miss. We're going to find out about this defense. I could be wrong on this, and all those guys could come in and be studs for him. Delane, Halsey, Peyton. There was another defensive end they got from Florida. I mean, and then you got Perkins coming back. It feels like a lot of variable. If it works, it's going to work. They'll probably go to the playoff if all those defensive guys hit. I need to see it. Because what we've seen the last 2 years from their defense, it's just that's been the reason.
Yeah.
And Nussmeier behind, I think, a mystery of an offensive line. And you're talking about Clemson, Florida, South Carolina and Dylan Stewart, Texas A&M, Alabama, all these great D-lines, Oklahoma, all these great D-lines we're talking about. If their O-line's not settled, it could be a problem. I'm gonna take the under. I'm gonna do it.
With that kind of quarterback too, it's not like he's a very mobile quarterback.
No,
either. That's another issue.
He is not. He can get outside the pocket. He manages the pocket well for his level of athleticism, but he's not gonna take off on you.
I will take the over. If it was 9.5, I probably would take in the under, but it's 8.5. I think LSU. Listen, they've won 10 games in all, but last year under Brian Kelly. Brian Kelly, I still think, even though he might be a little bit on the hot seat, a little bit at LSU, considering how high their expectations are down there at Baton Rouge, he's still like a top 10 coach in college football, in my opinion, too. They're going to go at least 9-3, in my opinion. I think, the Clemson game, they'll probably start off 0-1. I think Clemson might be the best team in college football. The Bama game at Bama is tough, too. Probably won't win that one either. They'll probably lose one more game, too. I just don't see them going 8-4 or worse than that. So I'm going to go over for LSU, but there's no denying they need their defense to start catching up to their offense if they want to become a college football playoff contender, which they've not been yet under Brian Kelly. And yes, that offensive line needs to find some stability after losing 4 guys to the NFL draft too. So I'll go over because I do think Garrett Nussmeier, those weapons, Caden Durham now in his sophomore year, they'll be enough. And I do think the defense will improve a little bit. I like some of the transfers they brought in defensively, like Mansour Delane, like A.J. Halsey in that secondary. The secondary will be pretty good. I think LSU go over the 8.5 win total. If it was 9.5, maybe I go under there, but I'll go over for the 8.5 there for the LSU Tigers.